On behalf of the Falmouth Litter Reduction Team, we welcome you who are here at the Falmouth Library and those of you who are watching on Falmouth Cable TV. The Falmouth Litter Reduction Team are thrilled by the turnout here tonight. We're going to start and tell you something about what we've learned, and then give you the opportunity to tell us what you know and have seen and your suggestions with regard to litter here in Falmouth. First, I'd like to introduce the team. My name is Alan Robinson, Peter Hargraves, Peter Wasdorf, back there, Barbara Schneider, Melissa Arendt, Sean Hardison. Ron Clattenburg is sailing the 7 seas and is not with us this evening. And Peter Clark, who is not a member, but is our moderator. We came together in December after the fall town meeting. Some of you are town meeting members, and you recall that there was an article for a bylaw to ban expanded polystyrene, foam serviceware and foam cups, and it was proposed for town meeting, and town meeting passed it. And for all you to know, as of coming August 7th, just 4 weeks from now, that ban goes into effect. And takeout restaurants and stores will not be providing foam. They'll be providing something as an alternative, and we're very pleased with that. Before I go any further, I introduced the team, but I want to introduce one of our inspirations and heroes, Don Mallinson, right there. Don, many of you know Don, but Don, 5 years ago, Don was the author of the bylaw to ban plastic bags, the use of plastic bags in Falmouth. And I got to tell you, we've been spending a lot of time picking up litter in Falmouth. Probably all of you have been picking up litter in Falmouth. But you know what? You have to bring your own bag in Falmouth. You can't find one along the sidewalk or along the street because there aren't any. It really made a difference. It really makes a difference. It makes a difference every day. And it inspires us because we hope as a team, but beyond the team, as a community, we can make a difference and reduce the amount of litter in Falmouth and get beyond reduction and eliminate litter. So we came together in December, and then others of us came on a little bit later. We developed a vision and a strategy. Our vision is simply the elimination of litter from Falmouth's roadsides, parks, beaches, and waterways. Our strategy is to partner with individuals, organizations, businesses, and town government to identify, develop, and implement remedies for litter reduction at the source through awareness, legislation, and hands-on activities. The form outline is pretty simple. We've got 2 objectives. Share many of the highlights of what we've learned to date, the Falmouth Litter Team have learned to date, and then, more importantly, to listen and learn from you all and your perspectives and your ideas with regard to litter in Falmouth. And we're talking a lot about litter in Falmouth. Falmouth isn't the only community that has a litter problem. I think we all know it's a Cape-wide problem. It's been reported in the Enterprise, it's been reported in the Cape Cod Times, it's been reported in the Boston Globe that Massachusetts has a litter problem. I guess really the country has a litter problem, but we really do have it here in Falmouth and on the Cape. Want to talk about our activities, list our activities very briefly. We decided we really wanted to have a systematic approach to this. So we performed roadside litter surveys, and you'll hear about those. We investigated legislative options, state, county, local. We learned about what programs are underway in Falmouth, Barnstable County, and Massachusetts Department of Transportation. We hosted 4 focus group listening sessions. You'll hear some about that this evening. We met with town committees, and we're continuing to meet with town committees. We've had the opportunity to update the Board of Selectmen, and we'll be doing that again on July 22nd in 2 Mondays. And we're here tonight hosting a public forum and wanting to continue to learn. And as I said, we'll be making recommendations our initial recommendations to the selectmen in just a little over a week. I'd like to turn it over to 2 of our members, Melissa Arend and Sean Hardison, who describe to you what we've learned in terms of the litter surveys that we've done. These are some of the highlights. We've learned a lot, and we've only got time for a little bit, so please come right ahead.
Thanks so much, Alan, for that introduction. So again, my name is Melissa Arend, and Sean Hardison and I have been sort of spearheading the efforts for performing litter surveys, but it's just been part of the effort for the entire team. And so before I launch into our methodology and some of the results, what we've learned, I just wanted to give us a little bit of our origin story. And so as Alan mentioned, oh, sorry, get a little bit closer. Oh, I feel so official now. So can you hear me better now? Yes, okay. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how we sort of came here to be performing litter surveys in Falmouth. And as Alan mentioned, as many of you probably already do, it started with just going out and picking up trash. That, you know, I moved to Falmouth almost 2 years ago and started running around Falmouth Harbor and Falmouth Heights and started really noticing the amount of litter around the harbor and near the beaches. And one day just sort of came across an empty trash can that was in an empty lot, and so just took it as a sign and picked up the trash can and started filling it with all of the litter that I could find, and ended up feeling like it was a really fun, really productive way to sort of clean up the community. And so I started making it part of my weekly routine to go out, and as some of you have heard, it's something called plogging, so running and picking up trash. And then it sort of developed into this passion where I started going out and wondering about, you know, what's the composition of the litter and how much of it is there really and where is it coming from? And so Sean and I started developing ways to sort of get a better comprehensive scientific understanding about the litter problem in Falmouth. And so that's where we met the Falmouth Litter Reduction Team. And so they were also really interested in getting an understanding, a scientific-based understanding of litter. And so they asked us to join, and it was a really productive venture for everybody. So the objective for the litter surveys really has been to get this scientific-based understanding, but also develop a simple community approach, so something that everybody could do to get a better understanding about what the problem is, to get both an understanding of the quantity and composition of litter in Falmouth. And so the team has been collecting information about litter, going out in their neighborhoods and collecting information, but Sean and I have gone out and collected some random samples to try to get a more holistic picture of litter. And so combined, we sort of get this figure where we're looking at all these different categories of litter, and the 7 primary categories when we aggregate everything that we're collecting information on are first food service, so this is everything from the paper bags that you get at the takeout counter to flatware, you know, the plastic silverware, to the clamshells, to cups, straws, and lids. Everything is in that category. And so that's, you know, when you put all that together, is the largest component of the litter that we're finding. But the second largest component is really nip litter. And following the nip litter, so those are mini liquor bottles that are under 200 milliliters, or in New England called nips. And then the other categories that we found were around 8% of the litters, other alcoholic beverage containers, so cans, bottles, maybe larger liquor bottles, but typically more just smaller volumes. Residential trash and recyclables, which might be an occasional tuna can or a napkin package or something like that. And then things that we weren't able to classify, so either tiny little fragments or pieces of plastic, you know, that might be tiny little bits. Thanks. Can you use the pointer? Oh, yes, thank you. So the 7% category here is is the other, so things that we couldn't readily identify is just something that we would say is other. And then another small category here shown in green is just beverage containers, so water bottles or soda containers. And a very small component are construction materials, so things you might find as siding or roofing materials. And so really, a really emergent conclusion of these comprehensive surveys that we did in Falmouth was that nip litter really is the single item that is a very big contributor to the total litter that we found. So 32% of all the litter, so 3,000 pieces of litter that we collected were nips. And so we really wanted to develop a strategy to better understand nip litter and the extent of nip litter in Falmouth. And so that's what Sean's going to talk to you all about.
Thank you, Melissa. So, like Melissa said, I'm going to talk to you about our randomized surveys and how we went about doing them first. So, one of our first objectives when we designed our study was to encourage community involvement. And so we kept it simple enough so that anyone with a smartphone and a hand counter could go out and collect their own data. We collected our samples at random intervals, moving away from starting points in different parts of Falmouth as a way to get a representative sample of the town. And because we were interested, and each sample that we went out, or at each sampling location, we sampled 1/10 of a mile of roadway on either side of the road. So we collected all of the litter, all the nips for within 1/10 of a mile of roadway on each side for each sample. And because we were interested in the drivers of nip litter, we focused our collections on varying types of road, which we classified according to established designations on using a mapping software called OpenStreetMap. And the road classifications that we came up with were primary and secondary roads. And primary and secondary roads are the roads that take you places. So when you're moving between Woods Hole and Falmouth, you are taking a primary road. And tertiary and residential roads. And those are the roads that take you around your neighborhood. We excluded roads that were unsafe, highways like 151, 28, and Sippowisset. So this map here shows all of our sample locations in red. Over the course, like I said, we went out and sampled 42 different locations around town for a grand total of 4.2 miles of roadway. Over that space, we collected 795 nip bottles, which comes out on average to about 184 nips per mile. And on one sample in particular that I think is worth bringing up, we found 100 nips in 1/10 of a mile on one sample. So the next step was to understand some drivers of nip abundance. So we developed a statistical model that took into account two predictor variables, and these are road type, which I mentioned earlier, primary and secondary roads, or tertiary and residential roads, and housing density. And specifically, we were looking at the housing density around the paths that we traveled when we were out sampling. So this figure here on the y-axis shows the number. It didn't come out great here, so I apologize for that. But on the y-axis, we have the number of nips that we found on each one of our samples. On the x-axis, we have the number of buildings within the immediate vicinity. And so the red line here shows the line of best fit for samples taken on primary and secondary roads. And then the blue line shows the line of best fit for samples on tertiary and residential roads. So you can see there's a pretty stark difference in the estimate of nip litter on primary and secondary roads versus the estimate for residential roads. So typically, Falmouth citizens do a pretty good job of cleaning up their neighborhoods, but on primary and secondary roads is where most of the problem is. So the next step was to take the model that we had built and apply it to all roads in Falmouth that met those criteria. So what we did was take a data set of all the roads and split it into 1/10 of a mile segments. And then using the model that we generated from our samples, we fit each we estimated the mean number of NIPS that you'll find on each road in Falmouth given road class and building density. So right off the bat, what sticks out is that these main roads here, you see the estimate is much higher than in neighborhoods all around town, which is what you'd expect, and which aligns pretty well with our experiences sampling around town. Is there anything else? Okay. Okay, so that concludes our section, and happy to answer questions when we're done with our chat.
So while Sean and Melissa were out collecting trash, I took the easy job and ran 4 focus groups. And as you can see, we call them listening sessions because the job was not to respond to anything said and not to debate anything said, but to truly listen to what those in the room had to say. So first one we held was with the leaders of 8 of the villages of Falmouth. I've listed them there, and you can see that. They came together, and we had a wonderful, almost 2-hour discussion. Then I went to both the Falmouth High School and the Falmouth Academy, and you can see that I met with 2 teachers and 7 high school students at the Academy, and a teacher with 13 students involved in environmental club at the high school. And then the final meeting was with 9 representatives from the group that we will call the liquor license holders in the town of Falmouth. And we were very careful to record what we heard at those meetings, and we came back afterwards and typed that all up and shared it as a group. And we have hopes that tonight you will add to that knowledge that we got from those 4 meetings. So here's some of what we heard. First of all, lots of effort is already happening to reduce litter. It was really a positive feeling to come away listening to what is happening around this town already. Many of you in this room, I know, go out and collect litter while you're walking. You have taken things in your own hands for how to reduce the amount of litter you even generate. And I was so impressed with what I heard at both high schools. I have to say, kids came into those meetings carrying their own straws or their own water bottles. A lot of them spoke about using the water bottle refill stations. But if you look, these are the kinds of things that they're doing. They're bringing trash bags in their cars. They're some of the villages are actually holding cleanups every single year, at this point once a year. They're facilitating bulk buying. I know Wacoit is doing a big job of that, trying to reduce the packaging there. Installing water bottle filling stations, reducing junk mail. We had one person who said every time a catalog comes into her mailbox that she doesn't want, she takes the time to respond and tell that company she doesn't want that mail. Individual walkers are collecting litter. Pat Thrasher's right here. She's really known as Pat Trasher, and we love her in East Falmouth because she keeps Davisville so clean. Liquor store management is facilitating redemption and daily parking area cleanups. I know for a fact that Kenyon's owner actually goes out and does his own cleanup every single day, multiple times a day, just for an example. But every one of them is very careful about cleaning up their parking areas and the store areas. Emptying the dumpsters frequently is real important, and that's for a number of health reasons in addition to keeping the litter from blowing around. Carrying compostable straws and utensils. I was so excited to go into the Flying Bridge and have them hand me a beverage that actually had a paper straw. They've changed over. Smitty's talking about changing over to compostable spoons. That's a great thing. So keep talking to people and asking them. Never using plastic bags around trash or plastic sandwich type bags. The kids talked about bringing leftover containers instead of a baggie with what they bring for lunch. And using the refillable water bottle always. That's a big thing at the high school level. So here's where people said they noticed the litter in open areas away from residences, at bus stops, on ramps to 28, near stop signs of other areas requiring vehicle slowdowns, on school grounds, in the bogs, along the harbors, and in beach parking lots, especially off-season when there isn't pickup. And the kids remarked that a lot of times they eat their breakfast at the bus stop, and the buses don't have a trash receptacle on them, and they end up not wanting to hold trash on the bus and leaving it at the bus stop. That seems like a really simple fix. So these are the kinds of things that we found in general for what the public said they saw as litter. And fruit skins are a lot of, that's a real heavy number of fruit skins being talked about. Both bananas and oranges, by the way. And dog poop in bags was one that came up a number of times. Finally, litter happens. Why? Because people don't have somewhere to get rid of their trash. It blows out of the back of a truck. It blows away on garbage day. They put trash out at the end of a stay, like on Sunday night, and it's not picked up till Wednesday or Thursday. Recycling containers are uncovered. Beaches don't have anywhere for trash in the off-season. People want to hide evidence of alcohol consumption, and people have no fear of repercussions. Focus group suggestions. Trash cans on the school buses, and they mentioned there were hardly any receptacles in the school parking lot. Hold more frequent village cleanups, especially in the fall after the bulk of the people have been around a lot. Hold enhanced communications about when it really is recycle day or when it really is garbage day. Promote the idea of a litter-free Falmouth with signage. Add a large deposit on nips or ban them. Keep educating younger generations to make littering unacceptable. Return to trash pickup at beaches in the off-season. Add trash containers all over town like you see in some of the cities, especially at bus stops. Have some trash receptacles in areas people can get rid of nips without fear of retribution. Issue covered barrels for recycling just like garbage cans, and distribute trash bags for cars. And that is what we learned.
Thanks, Barb. We, again, are continued to try to learn as much as we could. We talk with representative leaders of our Department of Public Works and learn about what programs they have, what staff they have available, and what they don't have available to address litter and trash barrels and the like. We talk with the beach, we've met and talked with the beach committee. Talk with the county sheriff of what programs they have for roadside litter cleanups with prisoners. The county trial court community service team, and the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. We've met with, as mentioned, the town committees, with the beach committee, with the solid waste advisory committee. We'll be meeting with the Board of Health next week. We met with the Board of Selectmen on May 20th, and we're meeting with them again just over a week from now. Now we're the part that we're really excited about. That is to hear from you. So Peter is the moderator. I think all of you have a handout that you got at the door, all of you who are here in attendance at the library. And it gives you the instructions of how long you have for statements, and the respect we have for everybody. No idea, no statement is a bad idea or statement, I think is one guideline we should go with. And I'm not going to say any more. I'm going to give it to Peter.
Thank you, Alan. Well, welcome to the public participation part of this evening, which the committee hopes will generate reactions to what you've heard, additions of information that you have, ideas. You can see that Barb is prepared to write them down here so you can see that they're captured, but of course it's being taped and that will be available also for the committee. I want you to recognize that there are some rules, not to limit, but just to make sure everybody gets a chance to speak. And so you'll have a first opportunity for 2 minutes, and Gary will hold up a paddle with a yellow side on it when you have 30 seconds left, and that'll convert to red when you've run out of time. And then I'll make a decision after that, but basically we'll try to get everybody who wants to speak through once, and then we'll come back for other comments. We'd like you to identify yourself, either by precinct if you're a Falmouth resident, or if you're not a Falmouth resident, and we welcome comments from people out of Falmouth, but tell us what town you're from, please. And there'll be I have 3 names of people who have signed up to speak, and they'll be called on first, but then we'll try to take you in the order that we see hands go up. It looks like we're going to have plenty of opportunity here with the number of people and the time we have. Any questions about that? Great. Well, Grant Walker is the first person who put his name down on this list. Grant, welcome. Is it helpful for people to stand up for television, or is it better yes, please stand up. Welcome, Grant. Go ahead.
Thank you. Grant Walker, 71 Philadelphia Street, which is in precinct number 3. And I think this has already been suggested in the presentations, but I think one thing that I would find helpful, and maybe other people would find helpful, is some guidance, some encouragement, maybe even some protocol for approaching people one-on-one when I see them, see a person who has thrown something down or left something. Sometimes, in spite of my reputation, I'm hesitant to to talk to people and say, "Hey, pick that up." And sometimes I do, but I from talking to others, I think many of us are hesitant to ask people to, not throw that down there, don't leave that there, or whatever. So some encouragement, maybe even some kind of concept of authority to do so, and some kind of protocol or way to approach people that might avoid, unfriendly confrontation, whatever. Thank you.
Grant. So if there were some kind of campaign, you could say, or a question that I often use when I'm approaching people I'm not sure of is, help me understand why you threw that on the ground. So the next person on the list, if I have the name correct, is Stavan Zlatev? Yes, sir.
My name is Stavan Zlatev. I live in Jericho Pad, the Falmouth Heights. I'm in precinct 2. I've been looking through this thing all about, and I'm stunned about one issue that finally came somewhere through the thing. When you walk out of here, you're going to be buried anywhere in cigarette butts. And it's an issue that could be dealt with. I have been interested in this matter for some years. I have studied what others have done, not only here in America, across the world. And you will see here somebody selling, I have not figured out who is that, a cigarette disposal, something which for the most part, you don't know what really this thing is, and for the most part is pushed somewhere to the side. The business wants to deal with that, but along that one you will see it's full of cigarette butts. And somebody is selling this thing, which is a totally unworkable thing. And let me show you one thing of, in my travel, I have found that Juneau, Alaska has the most practical thing that I have seen. Some other towns of Alaska also have done. But what we are missing out on this thing that we see out here on the street somewhere, you don't know what the thing is. It's missing mainly the signature. That this is for cigarette disposal. This is what Juneau, Alaska did. And you can see from an airplane that by there of $200 of first offense, I did not see anybody being fined there, but I did not see cigarette butts on the street. And out on this thing, you can see that there is a thing that says CBG code, which means their town meeting, that the city board of Juneau has deal with them and has this instruction. You will find these little things along the streets, along places where the guy that smokes, he's under this thing, and at the end, he has to somehow just push it innocently down. We need to deal with this thing, and I would like to get somehow further up. I don't think we have enough time to deal with this thing, but somehow I have ideas to the whole thing. I'm sorry.
No. I just want you to know, I appreciate your passion about this, and I think the committee has some information that might help you with this response, sir.
I have no personal interest except that when you walk out of here, even right outside in the very same door, anywhere, it's the cigarette butts. It's an unforgivable thing, and it could be dealt with.
Good. And we'll give you more time to talk about ideas and just, yep. Alan?
The gentleman, I thank you for your point, and I wanted to point out, while we had all the count on litter, and we had, percentage of nips and takeout, we started counting cigarettes and we stopped, cigarette butts, because there were just too many. I couldn't bend down that many times. So thank you so much. It's an important part, and we will include that.
Just because they're small, they're not insignificant, are they? No. Third speaker is Ted Fitzell.
My name's Ted Fitzell. I'm from Precinct 1, and for 40 years ago, I founded Clean Eel Pond Day, where once a year we pick up the trash in the town. And since then, we've joined with Jane Abbott and Leslie Lichtenstein and Hool, I can't remember her first name. But at any rate, they have done a great, Louise, thank you. But what I'm here tonight, and it's not for personal gain, but to show a great innovation in trash picking up. And you can purchase these for $22.19 from A.M. Leonard. And here it is, the simplest tool in the world. No working parts, no nuts, no bolts. You can pick up, Alan, a cigarette butt without bending over. You can pick up a brick. You can pick up a quart bottle. You don't get poison ivy. You don't have to wear gloves. And we got 12 of them in Woods Hole and use them all the time. But I'm going to show you the catalog if anybody wants to order them. But it really is an innovation. Thank you.
Thank you. And it raises an interesting issue that it seems to me I saw that the committee is looking at limiting at the source. You're talking about innovations to solve the problem away from the source, and that's an interesting point of discussion, perhaps, as we go along here. Yes.
My name is Peter Walter. I'm from Katomet, and I ride the bike path every day and pick up all the trash. And it has become so clean that it's hardly a chore for me anymore, but a great joy to ride something that's clean. And I want to share a poem with you that was written by a lady who read an article about me in the paper. She says, "I think that I will never see a sight as ugly as debris. Debris you brought here from afar, then blithely flipped out of your car. Debris of wrappers that you ripped and whiskey bottles that you sipped. With sanitizers on your hand, You tossed the bottle in the sands. Did you feel clean after you flossed? How dirty that your tool you tossed. Pickup is done by fools like me, but only you can make debris. That's Alice Batchelor. Now, I'd also like to share with you, I get inspired on the bike path. You may have seen a sign I made, if your dog refuses to pick up his or her poop, then you must stoop. And I pick up plenty of dog poop. And I'm going to leave these with Alan. These are my cards. And it says, great literature, mellow yellow, don't be bitter, while getting fitter, pick up litter. And on the other side, it says, don't you care at all? So I'll leave these with Alan, but I'd love it if you took them and put them on your refrigerators. They really work. And they're great fun for kids to see and get inspired.
Peter got here a little bit late, so I didn't get a chance to tell you about him at the start. But Peter is another one of the heroes of Falmouth. Peter was named, I think, in May by the Keep Massachusetts Beautiful organization as the Litter Buster of the Year for the state of Massachusetts. And the first year of that award. So of all the years, he's the guy. Peter, thank you for your work on the bikeway.
When I went to the gala in Boston in my honor, I was totally overwhelmed by how many people pick up litter. And a young man came up to me after I spoke, and he said, you said everything I think and feel. And we're all of the same vintage in here pretty much. We got to clean up this place before we leave.
Thank you very much. A couple of other hands. Yes.
Pamela Rothstein, Precinct 6, town meeting member, also vice chair of the bicycle committee. One thing we don't talk about is litter on the bike path because it's taken care of, so that's great. I wanted to address one specific issue. I'm concerned about all the issues, but I contacted this group a while back when I found out that the DPW was removing the trash receptacles from beaches. I see that as an enormous problem in this town. I'm at the beach year-round, have a dog, and it's of particular interest to people with dogs. So, because again, if you got dog poop, you got to get rid of it. Nobody wants to be traveling around with that, so people will leave it. But I saw something in action at Chappaquoit, and I had brought that to Alan's attention because I think that the trash receptacles should be replaced and put year-round on the beach. We are a year-round community. But number two, I saw somebody took an initiative at Chappaquoit Beach, which was to place those little sort of covered trash cans, about 2 as you're heading towards Black Beach. And I guess it was either the association or just another concerned individual who, I didn't understand what it was, but then I saw that there was a sign that said, put your dog poop in a bag and leave it here, and then somebody was taking it away. So again, it's this combination of what we can do as individuals, but even, couldn't the town accept that if they have to not have trash receptacles there are other solutions for having on a different scale. So I do not accept that it is either or. There's got to be a way for us to remove trash within this town, whether at our beaches or throughout the town on streets and in public areas. It simply has to be, and we've come a long way. We have recycling receptacles on Main Street and Woods Hole. We have to do better, and the answer is not to diminish what we're already offering for trash removal. So I see beaches as a big concern.
I'm Susan Bauer, Precinct 5. By day, I'm a psychologist, and the rest of the time, I am swimming. And I am swimming in ponds and harbors and rivers, and I go off fishing places. So I know an awful lot about the litter around ponds and rivers for the last 15 years. And this is just an observation. My observation is that there are two kinds of people, because the question that we do ask ourselves is, why would anyone do that? Why would they just dump? And I have found that, perhaps not what you would imagine, that there are two kinds of individuals that, without much thinking, throw trash on the shores of the ponds. One are people who, how to say this politely, really don't care. What the hell? I pay my taxes. Somebody's supposed to pick it up. I see this especially in fishermen areas, in areas that are not in the high rent district. Whereas conversely, in the high rent district, especially in the ponds that I swim on in Chatham and Harwich, I will see people who are clearly renters, clearly vacationers, and they come down and they take the residential trash. And what they seem to be thinking is, I'm paying $2,000 a night for this house, they can pick up the trash.
My name's Don Mallinson, and I live on Carriage Shop Road, which is Precinct 9. Carriage Shop Road is an extremely busy road, not just with cars like Sandwich Road, but with trucks. I'm talking about dump trucks. I'm talking about the cement trucks. I'm talking about all kinds of heavy-duty trucks. And I would suggest that in addition to talking to the retail establishments about, some kind of an educational program, but you might also want to go to the source of the where the truckers are, to have them, to educate them a little bit about, hey, when they're driving around, not to throw stuff out the truck window, but to go ahead and collect it and return it back. But in any event, I think education is part, and I think that's a good place to start. Thank you.
Yes. We're going to come back to Mr. Smazdov in a second, but first other people.
Hi, I am Mark Beraz, and I am in Precinct 9, and I pick up a lot of litter in my neighborhood as well. And like Don was just mentioning, I think a lot of debris is coming off of delivery trucks when you have a flatbed truck and they wrap their goods with the saran to keep them in place. A lot of times you see that shredding as the truck goes down the road, and you find that plastic up against the side of the road and in the trees and such like that. Another point I want to make is I had the impression that we blame a lot of the litter on visitors. I know that the streets I'm walking are not necessarily streets that visitors are renting on. And I see an awful lot of litter that I think is coming from our residents. Somehow we have to reach them. I think it would be short-sighted to just focus on residents or on people that come here to vacation. One thing that had really excited me when I moved to Cape Cod was coming over the bridge and seeing a sign that said $10,000 fine for littering. I thought, this is great. Finally I'm living somewhere where people care. Well, what I found is it's just a sign. And when I speak with police officers in Falmouth, I'm told, well, we've got much bigger fish on the plate that we've got to deal with, and we can't take care of litter. And some officers have told me, well, if I see something or someone blatantly throwing something out of the window, I'll stop them, but that's not very often. It'd be nice if somehow we could get the town to incentivize the police officers to do that enforcement. And also I want to touch on, we need town effort in order to help control the litter. Maybe we need to hire some temporaries in the summer to keep after this and, pick up litter along our roadsides. Thank you.
Ralph Herbst, Precinct 8. I live on Regis Road. Two things. One is I would really appreciate it if this committee would speak to the DPW, an organization, by the way, which I have great respect for, that they coordinate their pickup alongside the roads with their mowing. When they mow alongside the road and there's trash there, it turns one piece of trash into 10 pieces of trash. And I've noticed that over the years, that doesn't seem much coordination between when they pick it up and when they mow. And the second thing is, I would love to someday read about a study where people who don't vote throw trash.
I'm Jim Hain, and I'm at 289 Hatchville Road, member of Precinct 8, and I'm also a steward with the Coonamessett Pond Association. So a couple of comments. The presentation here, I'm guessing you're already doing this, but I'm hoping that it's on a website. The folks that presented the statistics and all that, I hope that's being put up somewhere. The second point is the broken windows theory that people may be familiar with. People who work in these areas, in urban areas, the idea is that if there's abandoned buildings with no broken windows, that doesn't invite people to throw stones and break windows. If you have buildings with windows already broken, that invites people to throw stones and break more windows. So the broken windows theory goes to, someone mentioned, you know, if an area is already clean, then there's a chance that, there's a better chance that it'll stay clean. Third point, gentleman mentioned the grabber, and those things are also available at Home Depot. So we, the Coonamessett Pond Group, bought a couple of those and handed them out, and for people of a certain age, it sure helps. And they're very, very efficient. So, and it also gives people a sense of that they're doing something. You give them a bag and a grabber, and okay. Next point, you know, I think that neighborhood groups will be a valuable resource to partner with the litter group. And lastly, I think, you know, this is my first time, of course, to the group, but the group is essentially invisible. So I feel that there should be some kind of a very visible campaign with partnership with all the local groups and visibility in the Falmouth enterprise. This is a topic that warrants some attention. So there could be sort of an active campaign. Thank you.
Is that better? Yeah. Okay, so if you leave your name and email address with Tom over by the door, I'll be sure to send out information. I can send out the URL to our website where we're hosting all this information.
Yes, how are you?
I'm Mary Harris, Precinct 5, and most of the trash that I see comes from, and at least in my neighborhood, on recycling days when it's been very windy and people put their things out the night before because they come very early in our neighborhood. And the other source are uncovered trucks where people who probably would be embarrassed if they knew where they were littering, I've followed behind them, particularly heading over toward the dump. And the stuff's just blowing out of the back of their trucks as they're going on because they don't cover them. I think if we ask the town to implement a smaller fine, I think a sign that says $10,000 for littering, you're never going to get a policeman to enforce that.
But if you had a $50 fine for littering and we took signs, as this man suggests from Juneau, and had them put up where cigarettes and nips are sold, that says $50 fine for littering and it will be enforced, that might help.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Back here. Mrs. Fishbein?
Hi, Joanne Fishbein. I'm Precinct 1. Personally, what I find, because I do a lot of walking and down Terhune Drive and other places, are the nip bottles. I will find a nip bottle almost every 5 feet. And have they talked about putting a recycling fee on those bottles? When we did that for cans and bottles, we seem to have a lot less. People get money, so maybe people are still going to litter them, but somebody's more likely to pick them up. And has that been addressed, and what's the response to that?
Thank you, Alan.
Peter Hargraves, why don't you talk about what we've learned about from the state legislation with regard to NIPS?
So in Massachusetts, it never got out of committee during the last 2-year legislative session. But it was reintroduced for a 5-cent deposit in January at the start of this 2-year legislative session. So sometime in the early part of January of 2019, a bill was in the Senate, the same bill in the House, and all of our, well, Dylan Fernandez and David Vieira are both co-sponsors of the one in the House. Dylan is also a co-sponsor of the one in the Senate, because apparently legislators are allowed to co-sponsor Senate bills. And then 10 days after the bill was introduced, it went into committee, which doesn't mean that it's dead. It means they want to be sure they wrestle with all the issues. Hopefully they did some of that over the past 2 years. And we've been in touch with Dylan Fernandez in particular, and also David Vieira, and Randy Hunt, who is the kind of the sponsor of the bill, the main sponsor. And so we continually communicate with them and ask what's going on and just try to give it a poke. But we have heard in various ways, and even from the focus group with the liquor store owners, that a 5-cent deposit is not going to be a sufficient disincentive. Do you want me to say a word about Maine? So this is a little bit of a confounded example, because Maine has a conflict of interest in the whole liquor industry. You may know that Maine is actually the wholesaler for liquor in the state. And they set the prices, they set the profit margins, and they recognized they had a NIP issue. And you might have read 2 years ago they had a big wrestling match in the state with the outgoing governor who wanted to ban NIPS. And I talked to the legislator who, I think Marianne was her name, Mastriano, and she gave me a lot of time on the phone explaining that she didn't think that the 5-cent deposit they put on the NIPS was really going to be effective, but that she had seen with Ice Out in Maine, this was a couple months ago I talked with her, that there seemed to be kind of anecdotally fewer nip bottles around, but there were still nip bottles around.
Peter, I'm going to impose a little bit of a time limit on you two for the moment. If we have more questions,
So
we'll
it
come
isn't
back.
seen as a solution, is the
Yeah.
short story.
Yes. Coming up, there's a microphone coming.
I have a question. Is there any possibility that we could have an article?
May I have your name and...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Lilia Franton, North Falmouth, Precinct 5, and I'm a new town meeting member. I would like to see, and I'm wondering if it's possible, that an article could be put forward for the next town meeting that would put a ban on NIPS bottles. I'd like to know if the town could endorse that and follow through without it going through the state, because, you know, that's one of the things that it gets stuck in committee. We've had that happen a lot. So I'm just wondering if that's a possibility for the town to pursue, and for maybe for the litter forum to pursue.
Well, we're interested in your comments. The committee has been thinking about a lot of these things, and I'll allow Alan a quick answer on that, or?
A quick answer is that, as we understand it, just as with, even though NIPS are different than expanded polystyrene foam, the same process can take place to propose a ban on NIPS. It'd have to be considered by town meeting and so forth, but it's within the realm of possibility.
Thank you. Other thoughts? We'll just let you sit and think for a couple of seconds here. Everybody must have some thought about litter in Falmouth.
And if we run out of questions, I've got some questions for
All
you.
right.
But there's the question.
And one there, and then I'm going to go back to.
Very briefly, I'll just address the point that was brought up earlier about approaching people, and I'll just say that the policy of our association is to not confront people. And that's sort of a delicate area, and I just mentioned that that topic warrants some attention. And we say, don't confront people.
Thank you.
Stamen Zlotov again. Obviously, there was a question that came up. We need signage. We need to warn people the prevention. Do not litter, and we have to provide things. I have an article that hopefully will be in the Enterprise tomorrow, and it's labeled "Littering Issue." Let me just bring you a small, very thing that happened there. Two trash disposals. Obviously, both of them. One of them was a letter in the Cape Cod Times that somebody tossed a trash bag out of a window, and it became encounter there of issue. But I was on the supermarket, and as there are some carts left, and there was a very innovative one that he put his trash bag into the basket out there. Less invasive, but nevertheless he has to get rid of it. So the point is, we need to provide an access, whether it's with charging or in some way. You have to provide that thing so that they can get rid of it. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for.
Thank you very much. Yes, Alan?
The signage statement you made is really important. There is virtually no signage in Falmouth, but we've gotten a start. When we met with the beach committee, we talked about they talked about their interest in litter on the beaches and in the parking lots, and we talked about possibility of a sign. So the beach committee, teaming with the beach committee, have produced signs that are being installed at the beaches.
Let me add one thing to that. The beach committee had enough money to pay for half of the signs they need for one of these to be at every beach. And I'm hoping that between the Davisville Association and the East Falmouth Village Association and any other association, we can come up with the other half of the money to get these at every beach. Because this is really an eye-opener. Those of us who work with marine mammals, we know what's happening to the animals in our ocean. We know it's, the swimmer over here mentioned what she's noticing. I started on this committee because I'm worried about what's happening with what's ending up in the water. And this says it so clearly. So we're hoping that we'll get these everywhere. The other thing I wanted to say about the kids' response about how you go up and say to someone, why'd you do that? I asked the kids, how would you react if you're in a car and somebody throws something out of the window? Good question. What would you ask your kids that question? Well, very interesting answer. If I don't know the kid really well, I wouldn't say a word. And I think we can all appreciate that. It'd be great to have ideas for kids of what they could say and how to say it tactfully.
Yes. This mic right there.
Linda Bowers, Precinct 8. I love the sign. I would suggest it also go at all boat launches.
I'm Joanne Lemoyne. I'm the owner of Kenyon's Market in East Falmouth, one of them, anyway.
I don't deny there's a litter problem anywhere in town. That's not why I'm speaking. I think instead of just asking the East Falmouth Village Association and the other associations and the people that you've contacted already for donations, if you put out do a townwide drive for donations to get these signs printed, put up, and financed in general, that you will have more donations from the local businesses, all the different businesses. Many local residents would contribute to this. And you're not just relying on the village association with a limited amount of funds. I think you'll find you'll have an unlimited amount of funds to get the signs up and get things implemented. Even, for instance, being able to hand out a trash bag to people along the beach on the 4th of July weekend. Because we all know, we saw pictures of what the beaches looked like after this past weekend. Having somebody walk down the beach on the weekends and here's a trash can, trash bag, please use it and take it home with you today. Put it in your trash can. There are lots of ways of doing that and getting to people. You just need the money to generate the bags or buy them from somewhere. The other thing that I would like to address, and more along the lines of my line of work, I would strongly suggest that we let the state work with respect to NIPS, because right now there's not a machine that can process a NIP return in the state. So that whether we charge 5 cents or 50 cents on a bottle, they return them. Our employees, the local employees, have to handle those cans and bottles. They will not. We cannot get help to handle them. We need the machines. We definitely need the machines. And the last thing I will point out is that I'm guesstimating that this town and all the liquor stores sell close to, I would bet based on our volume, $5 million bottles per year, nip sizes. That's a lot of bottles. I've done my homework since the first meeting. Bottom line is that the number you're picking up, you need to remember, it's such a small percentage of the customers who are dumping those bottles. Some people buy nip bottles because they're limiting how much alcohol they consume in a day. Their doctor said they can have 1 drink, not 16, which is what the big bottles do. Just remember, you don't want to punish everyone for what just very, very few people do. And I'm not denying there's a trash problem, or a litter problem around town, but don't punish everybody for the mistakes of a few.
Thank you, Joanne. Yes, Grant?
If I may ask a question of the lady from Kenyon's Market. You said that there's no nip machines here in Massachusetts. Do they exist in other places, other states? Are there no machines that have been developed for that at all?
We just attended the Massachusetts Package Store Association annual meeting. And the first thing we did was we went to the Redemption Company machine, the company that takes back all of our empties now, shredded and whatnot, and asked, is there a machine? And the answer was no. And they haven't found one that works anywhere in the country for those little tiny bottles. And that's the problem. So what we need probably are more recycling containers that people can put those little bottles into. You know, the giant size recycle bins are great with a cover on them and let people, out in front of the store, they would use those. But the people that are going to throw things out the window are still not going to use those bins. Other people will. They'll return them that way.
Thank you. We have time. Any final thoughts, final questions? You had, Alan, you had? I have one for Sean, too.
You go first.
Sean, as you were presenting material and you talked about neighborhoods versus residential versus primary, your comment was that it looks like people in neighborhoods tend to pick up where it's safer and others don't. But that assumes that the same amount is being thrown out in the neighborhoods as thrown out on the primary, kind of, doesn't it? Is it that people in neighborhoods are picking up more, or is it that there are fewer nip bottles thrown in neighborhoods to begin with? Do you have a sense of that?
I think it's probably both. My point was just that people are on the lookout more in neighborhoods, and so they're more likely to clean up around their homes. And you're right, there are fewer people passing through that are going to toss litter out the window. So,
Thanks. Yep.
I've got a question, a show of hands. It's a two-part question. First part's just show of hands. And I think I know the answer, but how many people that are in the room here are fairly regular litter picker-uppers when they see it? It's almost unanimous. A question: how along the lines of that first question you asked, how do we get others to do that? How can we, as individuals, influence the other person in the street or our friends or neighbors to do the same? Go ahead.
Is that I educate the younger people in my community. I have grandchildren. I bring them along with me. I always have a container in my car for their litter and trash if they have any. And they now have, my two granddaughters have reached a point, they say, let's pick up what we left here and put it in the trash barrel. So I think it needs to begin with our school children.
What? Yes, go ahead.
Lilia Franton again. I really agree with your comment about it beginning with school children, but it also would be very helpful, I think, if we could have, and it's been mentioned before, a more public involvement through articles, through a real program where you're pushing the idea of people not littering. And I think it becomes a consciousness thing. If I can go back to when I was a kid, there was a program started, what is it called? Don't Be a Litter Bug. And I remember we used to throw things right out the window when we were driving. And my little niece said to me, "You just threw something out the window." And I thought, oh my God, I did. Even though I had heard about Don't Be a Litter Bug, it didn't reflect on me personally. But I think that program was very successful, and I would like to see Falmouth do something along those lines. And if another little side thing, we lived in New Mexico, and we were up in a village where there was a great deal of poverty and absolutely no regard for throwing things out the window, which included diapers. I mean, you name it, it was thrown out the window. I started a program, the kids used to call me the trash lady. I started a program where, and I think this could work in the schools. I'm an artist, and so a friend of mine and myself, we went to the schools and we developed with the teachers a poster program. And the poster program began on Mother's Day, or the reverse, and ended on Earth Day. And it was a way of saying about Mother Earth and being a good steward. And the children really loved it, and we gave them pizzas, those who did the best littering, because they had to pick up trash and put it into big garbage bags. So the class that had the most got a pizza. But in any event, we went back years later, and it was remarkable, the improvement of the roads. And I really felt, my goodness, I think the children really took it to heart. So I would just say, if we could do something along those lines in Falmouth, I think would be very enjoyable, and I think would be profitable and efficient.
Thank you. Thank you. But looking at the ingenious tongs, talking about trash bags in cars, I've had near accidents reaching for the trash bag that's under the seat. So does somebody seen an ingenious, safe way to hold a trash bag in a car so that I can reach it easily? And
There are
yeah?
things that strap onto your seat, with Velcro.
Okay.
Sorry.
Where are they available?
I'll give you about.
All right.
I'll tell
Thank
you.
you.
Pam,
I wanted to respond to you because I think there are two important ways to look at getting more people to pick up trash. individuals who are motivated will always do it, and we can always spread the word, you know, individually through other people, tell other people about what we do and have a campaign. But I think a really effective way is to have more frequent group, collective, community pickups. And I think I saw that come across the screen because I've done it for Earth Day. I've done it a month or two ago. I did that area under the highway on Thomas Landers. It was terrible. I thought I was going to do it near my house, and I didn't. That's where they wanted me to go. So that was very eye-opening to me. But especially, so when communities organize people and give assignments and get people into areas they don't usually see as effective, or having group pickups, because it's always, you know, even picking up trash with a friend is fun, right? So I think those two ways of getting people collectively, and we need more pickups, group pickups. I don't think we do one in the summer, so that we're already missing a huge portion of the population who's only here temporarily to get involved in things, because we tend to do it in the spring, and I don't know if we do it in the fall, but I think there's room for more of that.
Well, just Barbara asked, there are some challenges to do it in the summertime. One, a lot of them get covered. Some litter does get covered up by vegetation, and some of the vegetation is poison ivy. Although, if you've got that long picker, we can probably overcome the poison ivy and the briar issue. Mark, did you want to respond to?
Mark Barrows again. I've found that people are stopping and thanking me when I'm picking up litter, and those areas that I'm picking up seem to be cleaner than they haven't been in the past. There's still a lot for me to do, but I think by example, more folks are not necessarily picking up litter, but throwing less out of their cars. Another thing, though, in terms of a program, what I found initially was carrying a bag of litter with me. I would end up with 5 or 6 bags, and carrying them home became a non-starter. So what I've started to do is to pick up on trash day, and there are all those barrels out by the street. I just add my litter to that barrel, and it makes it a much easier process. And if we can encourage people to do that, to get involved and walk their neighborhood and not have to carry trash with them, we might find some headway there. And lastly, I think it would behoove us to require residents to use barrels instead of just putting out their trash in a plastic bag. The crows get it into it, and it gets all over the place. If people were required to use a barrel, I think we'd have less of a problem.
Thank you. Is there a vest or a T-shirt that would represent the movement that people could wear when they're picking up, that would make it feel announced to people that you're on the team? No, what's that? Behind you.
The Bikeways Committee just made alert when passing vests. I was responsible for that. So it is super easy to do and inexpensive to do as well. And again, that's not only to affect that movement and that change, but to broadcast the message. So I think creating something, we opted for vests because you can wear it year-round, you can wear it over whatever you choose to wear. So we did them at Howlingbird.
Let's come back to that term movement. Movement in terms of an initiative, organization. But I'm going to ask another question. And this is a case in point. The parking lots that just outside the library here, the large parking lot. I'm there quite frequently. Every time I'm there, there's paper cups, aluminum cans, beer cans, soda cans, cigarette containers, nips, everything. How do we stop that? Just focus on that one large parking lot behind Main Street. How do we stop that? What do we do?
Is there a trash can there? That's one question.
I don't believe there is.
I don't think there is either.
Okay. Is there a sign? No sign. Any other things we can do with that parking lot so it doesn't become? I mean, there's two ways to approach this. I mean, realistically, you have to do both. We're really trying to find ways to prevent the litter in the first place. We want to go out of business, in terms of having a litter team. The second way, of course, is picking it up, because the reality is there is going to be litter, but we're going to keep trying to get down to zero. But go ahead. You,
So is it possible that if you see somebody throwing something out the window, you get their license number, you call it in, they get fined? Because if I got a fine for speeding one time, I'm going to pay a lot more attention the next time I'm on that road. I think it would be the same thing for litter. You get a $50 fine for littering, you're less likely to throw something out your window the next time you're thinking. And I have seen people do that, and there's nobody to call. Anyway, just a thought.
Thank you, Joanne.
So 2 things on that. The first is the idea about trash barrels and signage. Again, I always go back to listening to high school kids because I think they have way better ideas than older generations of us. They always have the right answer. And they said, if you walk around this town, you can't believe how many places there isn't a trash barrel. And so what are people doing? They're just dropping it. And that seems like a key, but it means we'd have to have more people with the DPW emptying those trash barrels, which means we have to change our budget to reflect that. The second thing about fines, again, going to staff and money. And when you talk to the chief and you say, why aren't you doing anything about fining people for litter? You know what he's going to say. You can predict the answer. We can't keep up with life and death situations and real big issues in this town. For us to start worrying about this kind of fine is not at all something we can handle on a day-to-day basis. And they've even admitted when they watch littering going on, they just can't stop. If they have one squad car handling all of East Falmouth at a time, they're not going to stop and write a ticket for litter. So again, you have to be realistic about staff and what do we have for money and how do we ask the town. So I think when we talk about going on the 20th of July and you present some of these things and you talk about, can we start to build some of this into the budget? That's a real good start. And some of it will happen in ways that are easier than giving fines, I think.
That's the 22nd, I think, right? The Board of Selectmen meeting? Yeah.
Sorry, Monday night.
I know the police would say, Mary Harris, again, Precinct 5, the police would say that. There were loads of people driving 80 miles an hour on the highway, and the police aren't stopping all of them. But every once in a while, they stop a few of them, and a lot of people notice it, and it gets publicity, and that slows everybody else down. The IRS only audits 5% of the taxpayers, but it prevents most of the people from cheating. So if we put in a $50 fine here, gave us some publicity, and the police actually fined about 6 people in 1 week, and we got a big story in the Enterprise about it, it would make a dent.
Well, thank you very much. Is it time to end? Any last comments? Oh, okay. Well,
actually, I've got a couple things to wrap up.
Yeah,
okay. I think it was Pam who used the term movement. Is for those of you who are here in the audience, is this an issue that's worth trying to build an initiative? Falmouth Litter Reduction Team is just a team. We're not even a nonprofit. We're just a group of people who are very interested and very concerned and really want to do something. And we know that you're all here, and those of you who are watching on television want to do something. There's things we can do individually, and many of you, all of you really, are doing that. But when the individuals coalesce into groups, and groups are partnering with each other. I'll say something for the town. What the town does, anybody wants to throw a cleanup, the town will provide you bags, will provide vests, safety vests, and will arrange to pick up the bags when the cleanup is complete. They do want to be supportive. What can we do to build, maybe just a couple last suggestions to build this into an initiative that continues, that builds and so forth. I heard, publicity, articles in the paper, police pulling a few people over and getting publicity about that. What else? How can we build T-shirts? Yes.
guest speakers at homeowner association annual meetings.
This group could organize more pickups, and which we learn best practices. Like I love the one of picking up on trash day. Whether you work with communities, this could be, you know, the motivating group to get those going.
Anything else? I would like first to thank Peter. Great job moderating. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank FCTV for your broadcast, your coverage today. Thank you very much. I want to thank you all for joining here. I'd like to thank the people who participated in the focus groups, and hope that you'll continue to share ideas. We don't really have a website or anything like that, but if you wanted to, I'll give you my email address if anybody wants to contact us. We'll eventually get ourselves a team email, but my email is amrobinson, ROBINSON 101 @gmail.com. So if you do want to reach out to us, you can do it in that way. Or if you know one of our members, please contact them. Would any of we've got, I think, a few more minutes. Would any other members of the committee like to say anything? Oh, somebody here.
Hi, my name is Marilyn Mee. I'm an out-of-towner, and I just went outside and did a walk around the entire library grounds. Interestingly, the place where I saw the most litter is near the picnic tables, and there isn't one trash receptacle anywhere close to the picnic tables, and it seems to me that's where garbage would be. A couple of the trash containers are really hidden around all your beautiful greenery. If it does make you feel any better, in my neighborhood back in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, your area is so much cleaner than the area that I live in. It's really very impressive, but there really aren't a lot of trash receptacles for a community that really cares about keeping a town clean. So just my observation as an out-of-towner and, you know, just walking around and taking a look.
Good. Barb, do you have anything that you'd like to add from like the list you've been compiling and all that? What we might do?
We will be taking these lists, and we will be meeting and discussing things to bring ideas to the selectmen and to the community, for that matter, in different ways. And I think you've all given us, you've supported a lot of what we've heard in the focus groups, but you've expanded on that, which is exactly what we were hoping would happen. Lots of great ideas, and we kind of see where general themes are and ways to approach the town to get help on some of this. I think they do care, and I think they need ideas, and they need to know where some money needs to be spent. So thank you for that. And please don't leave today without filling out that little form at the bottom and tearing it off and dropping it in one of those lovely creative boxes in the back of the room. And if you didn't say something and you think of it later, just email it, please, because we do want to hear about it. And anytime between now and the 18th, we'll talk about what you say between now and the 18th for sure. So thank you.
Oh, and thank you, Melissa. I made an omission when I introduced the team. I forgot to add our most recent member, although he's been a member now, I think, for like 3 months, Tom Grossman. Tom, I apologize. And Tom's been doing the human work up there, making sure everybody got the sheets and the forms and all that. So thank you, Tom, and my apologies. And thank you, Melissa, for that reminder. It's time, I think. Thank you so much. We look forward to talking to you and hearing from you and your support and working together and partnering as we go along. And it's Clean Up Falmouth, litter-free Falmouth. Thank you.